Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back. It is League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys for a spicy little bit of highlights from the LCK and the LPL today. Listen, these matchups look pretty good on paper, but some of these delivered in a way I didn't imagine possible.
Hey, it's a wild Thursday. Games that we're going to be diving into. They were fun all across the board. Good storylines is the best thing that comes out of these performances and the results of the games. Let's dive into it.
The spiciest part started before anyone even hit the rift when you saw the starting lineup for Damwon Kia, because Ghost was not there, looking like he may be benched, which means Malrang, who's the main sub they have in the jungle role, comes in. But Malrang, that's two junglers. How's this going to work? So he had been slotted in AD carry in replacement for Ghost, but he was the jungler, which means you had Canyon going to the mid lane, but then you had Showmaker going into the bot lane. So really it was a triple role swap out of Damwon versus the Africa Freaks.
And I've been seeing some people's reactions being all about, oh my goodness, we get to watch Showmaker in the ADC position, talking about Showmaker, everything like that. I'm like, man, how does it feel to be Ghost when the team is saying that they would rather make this many changes? Doesn't matter how much faith you have in the talent of someone like Showmaker making that change. To be making this many in your roster certainly says quite a bit about your confidence level with Ghost just playing his position. That's not a very good look.
And it's all of a sudden left to Beryl and Khan sitting there being the only guys actually playing their position as a starter for Damwon. And this is the 2-0 of Freak of Freaks, remember, coming into this match. But really what this did is just fully opened it up to be a full fiesta when you have these off-role players playing in this match. And that is exactly what you got. A little bit in game two, more in game two, a little bit in game one. But game one you had Khan on the set, Malrang got the rumble, and Canyon playing Viego. I mean, he plays that in the jungle anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, the composition ended up not being too wonky, nothing too unfamiliar. As you said it, though, having these many changes through the game, this certainly felt like the LCK's sloppy Joe burger of a match.
Yeah, and that first match did go 37 minutes. Khan ended up picking up the MVP. Showmaker, early on, the laning phase, it was a little bit rough, but as soon as he got out of laning phase and team fighting came around, he looked pretty friggin' clean on Ezreal.
He looked like a pretty damn perfect ADC, making sure the chip damage is there, following it up. And I don't know if we need to have this discussion for this game specifically, but at some point we need to have that discussion about Ezreal and the power level that he has hit and what happens when you have some of these builds that he's able to get. It ain't pretty.
And game two, the Ezreal was discussing in game one. Game two is when this is the biggest fiesta game I've seen in the LCK in 2-3 years at the very least. We were rocking a kill per minute for a lot of it. And Canyon gets to play the Rise. Okay, you play Viego in the jungle. I haven't seen too much jungle Rise in my time.
No, and the only one that I can think of for this is the way that they were playing, the way things were going. He was trying to bring a little bit of extra Nexus Blitz flavor to the
level 3 teleport Rise coming in on.
He says, oh, we don't have the cannon to launch from base. Here we go. We get the Rise. We teleport. Man, it was just all over the place from the get-go. But the big one, the one that I want to be focusing on is that fight around the Elder Dragon. I think right there is the one where you can have a lot of fun getting that deep dive into what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the team fights were all over the place, extended. And the big thing you can talk about, this is a role swap. This is the first time Canyon's ever playing mid. He flame Horizon fly in this game, playing the Rise. How bad does that feel if you're flying?
That's a pretty bad ouchie. That's like when you get into the game and someone says, "This is my first time playing this champ," and it does not go your way.
I mean, it speaks to how insanely talented and mechanically proficient Canyon is to be able to play that well in the mid lane. This is things you used to hear about Mata playing every single role and beating his teammates 1v1 in their own role. He's just that good at the game. Maybe it's something we're seeing with Canyon. Maybe it's something we're seeing with Showmaker. Either way, it ended up being a 2-0 in favor of Damwon, giving a Freak of their first loss. It wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, but my God, was game 2 fun.
It was fun, but now you're left with the questions after the series, right? You're left with the questions about
Is this the roster now?
Right. What does this mean for Damwon moving forward? What does this mean for Ghost? All these type of questions that will only be answered in time for us on the outside, but leaves you with so many puzzling questions. And just at the end of the day, to look at it as simply a 2-0 Damwon result does not tell the full story at any means.
I think the things to look at here are, one, Showmaker was spamming 80 carries in solo queue leading up to this event, so it was obviously something they already had in mind. Two, people are saying Beryl has been the one underperforming. How are you going to bench Ghost and not Beryl? But as we've seen other people say, and you've seen the comms for Damwon, Beryl's a pretty integral part to the communication and the overall macro for Damwon, which becomes harder to sub out even if you're underperforming.
Right, if you want to talk about trying to make an adjustment, trying to make an improvement to that bottom lane, and you're trying to go through the different avenues that you can do it, you're going to arrive at this one more times than you're going to arrive at trying to replace Beryl, because Beryl is someone that we have seen the high end of skill come through from him individually as well. But the more important thing is just, as you said, the communications, the support role, these type of changes is a bigger change than just looking at even, the amount of changes that you have to go through the way that you've decided to do this. But even then just swapping in Showmaker to the ADC role, that's not too big of a change. My man says, hey, give me more damage, give me more kills. I'll take it, no problem. Switching over to the support role and everything that entails throughout the entirety of the game, the different phases, that's a different ask.
Yeah, and I mean, it remains to be seen if this is going to be the starting five going forward for Damwon. Coma, the rest of the team obviously felt like a change needed to be made. I know there's some rule where you can bring up a player from challengers every 2 weeks. That's a rule, but Malrang was the only sub that they had promoted. They promoted him back in April to be part of the main roster. So maybe they're going to be bringing up somebody else from the challenger team, because I could honestly see Showmaker playing AD carry for a lot of the split, but Canyon playing mid for the rest of the split seems a little crazy.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's maximizing your potential, right? As far as these players and what they're capable of and how dominant they can be in the roles. Having Canyon not in that jungler role is certainly something that I would be looking at for Damwon. And it really, for me, this just raises the questions for how long has this been something that you've played with the idea or had been thinking of? Because this is not simply just a knee-jerk reaction to slumping out of MSI or not being nearly as consistently dominant as an LCK champion should be at MSI. This is more than that to want to make a change like this at this point.
And I think, obviously, the bot lane has been a huge question mark lately. I don't think this answers any of those questions. It just, maybe it gets, okay, so Ghost is gone. That question's answered. But now I have 10 more questions about what this roster is going to look like. And I'm not feeling more confident in them going forward because I don't know what I'm going to be looking at.
I think the only thing, to be fair in that regard, as you said, is those more questions, the more questions that you have right now will be answered just based off of time and gameplay, and with the potential of this, if this is the answer, if this is their response to what they want to do and address the bottom lane issues, could potentially solve more of those questions than it's created at this point.
I think they are just taking a page from the T1 notebook from spring, and maybe we're going to be seeing swaps left, right, and center for Damwon. Khan says, I want to play AD carry. Throw me in there. I want to try it out.
That's like saying, oh man, I did the test that you're gonna do yesterday, and they throw away the paper, and it's all the wrong answers from the test the next day. That's how that feels. That's what they're.
But Damwon's going a step further from T1. They're not just subbing out players; they're role swapping within those as well. At least T1, everyone was playing their main role.
And a little different if we're talking about just swapping through players the caliber of Showmaker and Canyon.
It is incredibly impressive how well they both played for completely role swapping for the first time, really. So all of a sudden, Damwon, it doesn't matter who they're playing going forward. It is going to be must-see action because you don't even know what the roster is going to be looking like. We just memed on them for last year, but now it looks like we do know what the T1 roster is going to be going forward. They lose to Damwon, and thank goodness, Mark, they didn't sub anybody out.
Thank goodness it's not just us that knows what the T1 roster is. It seems like the T1 coaching staff has figured out that this is the 5-man that we got to be rolling through with, got to be sticking through with, thick and through. And absolutely, you saw it in this series against Freddie Brion today. We got the T1 victory sweater on, boys. It was a clean 2-0 performance.
Mark's happy with it. That means he can wear the gear to represent the boys. And it was Faker picking up both Player of the Game awards. You can have some argument. Maybe Kyria deserved at least that Game 1 action on the Tahm Kench. She continues to be, him and Life are pretty clearly the two best supports in the LCK, only separating themselves further from the rest of the pack. But yeah, overall, you're probably pretty happy with what you saw out of T1. I'm particularly impressed and happy when I'm seeing Kana performing well and performing well on carries like Jace and Lucian that need a lot of resources.
And the best thing is to see him, performing on these type of things and then getting other positives around the map, right? That it isn't just that or wherever you're putting that attention, those resources, you're finding other positives from other members of this team. I think Teddy had a fantastic performance in both of their games. I think he was very steady. And as you said, look, I'm all in favor of Faker picking up every MVP left, right, and center. I'm all about it. But you said it, game number 1, we got to get to the bottom of this because the correct MVP is Kyria and what he was doing. He said it with Life, the job that they have done really as the two premier supports from the LCK this split. And specifically with Kyria, the consistent improvement that he continues to make in his career, the lessons that he continues to learn, the mentorship with the rest of this T1 roster, this is becoming an absolutely unmissable player to watch.
The synergy between him and Teddy is reaching new heights this split because you saw that Tahm Kench game. Teddy was playing so incredibly far forward because he had the confidence and he knew that Kyria was right behind him. As soon as a Rumble ulti gets dropped on him, any form of CC comes near him, Kyria's immediately there to pick him up. And it's terrifying to play against an opposing bot lane that's that in sync.
It really does unlock that next level of pressure that bottom lane can exert, right? When you're talking about an ADC with the skill, the mechanics of someone like Teddy, making sure that the pressure is always there and then, oversteps one time, didn't matter because the Tahm Kench is there. Kyria is there to back it up situation. Really liked what you saw from the bottom lane overall. But again, this was about everybody on T1 performing well. And then if you really want to put that spotlight on an extra part of this other thing going well, you said it, Kana performing in the top lane is key for T1 to continue this level of form.
And Cuz is a guy we haven't really talked about much so far in the summer split. I think he's not underperforming. He's not overperforming. He's been fine. That's why we haven't talked about him a ton.
Yeah, and I think the key with this T1, this 5 for T1 that we've seen so far, and as we talk about, is going to be the continued development, improvement, integration of Kyria as to become more of a veteran player, more of a voice on this roster. And then as long as Cuz is you're not talking about Cuz, that's a good thing, is how it feels, because there's so many other positives on this team going right. If Cuz is just flying under the radar, if it's nothing that you're getting upset about, things are probably going pretty well.
They've taken very different paths to get there, but now T1 and Damwon both sitting at 2-1 through their first 3 games. Freddie Brion's down to 1-2 after we were so hyped on their first game of the split. The last 2 haven't looked as nice.
They'll be back. They'll be back. I've got faith in the boys bouncing back. It's a long summer.
It's a long summer, and they've only played 3 games. They're still very much in the thick of the playoff hunt, and T1 looking like they can reach contender status if they have not already. The other banger match from the day, and it was a banger. It was probably the best overall series because it went the distance. All 3 games were close. We're talking FPX versus LNG. And for all you guys who are saying LNG 6 on the power rankings, this team's a joke. They're overrated. Why are they even here? Watch the series. Did you watch the FPX series?
I don't even know if FPX was watching it, and they were the ones sitting in the chairs playing against this LNG squad and what they had. Look, I agreed with some people having their criticisms about LNG, and when we brought LNG into this part of the power rankings, we said look, this is a spot where they might be falling drastically, or they might be able to hold their own. Big matchup against FPX, and well, they held their own, my man. They held their own and come out strong with that 3-game victory.
Yeah, it's the first game. I mean, it was very obvious that they wanted to completely camp Nuggery on the Akali. They did that. He was basically useless for the whole game.
Operation successful, yes.
Never even really got to play. His team's still able to win the game because their LNG kept trying to force this quick Realm Warp into Baron to rush it down before FPX could do anything. They end up getting Baron to barely even half before FPX shows up and just kind of sweeps the fight over to take game 1. But even game 1 was incredibly competitive back and forth, peak LPL action. And then the second game, it's kind of the opposite. It again comes down to some crazy Baron fights, but this time it goes the way of LNG. Gotta specifically highlight Tarzan on the Xin Zhao.
Yeah, the Xin Zhao making sure that it gets done. And then, hey, you want to make sure that Xin Zhao is going to get even bigger, even more monstrous. Well, we've got something called Game 3 Lulu up our sleeves.
Yeah, that was... I mean, the Viego for Do and Beat was great in Game 2. Almost got them back in it, or stole the game. And then the third game is when, yes, you have the Xin Zhao and the Lulu again. And I'm going to highlight the Rakan again, because Iwandi was fantastic throughout this whole series, especially in Game 3. And when you're getting 3 to 4 man knockups with Rakan, immediately followed up by another knockup from the Lulu, I never thought Lulu Rakan as a combo would be so disgusting, but it was in Game 3.
Most of the time we're seeing it is, as we talked, the Xin Zhao, you're talking about amplifying a damage source, making sure that they're staying alive, they're doing more, they're getting in there. To change it up, to throw it on that Rakan, which is just more CC on top of CC on top of extra CC with a side order of CC. Oh my lord, you were not playing the game when that combo came through.
Now you can talk about the pick ban, maybe not removing the Lulu or the Xin for FPX in that third game. Sure, there's definitely criticism to be had there, but on the Rift, LNG delivered across the board. You could say in all 3 games. Ale in the top side, he outperformed Nuggery all 3 games, even when he had Gwen and Akali.
Right, and yes, a lot of that is making sure you're calling the whole neighborhood and squad to be there, which is fair. But at the end of the day, you're just looking at the result, right? What happened? And at the end of the day, the result was a Nuggery that was very ineffective for most of this series. That's not entirely up to him, given what was thrown at him on this side, and really good planning from LNG. And again, planning is fantastic. But it's nothing without the extra execution, and LNG nailed the execution when it mattered most in Game 3.
Tarzan's the guy we always talk about when we're talking about this version of the LNG roster. It's more of the same. I love seeing, by the way, in post-game threads, just to bring up poor Cuz again, Tarzan has a great game, and the comments are just, man, T1 should have signed Tarzan. Leave Cuz alone, man.
Yeah, that's number one. You got to get some love for the boy Cuz and what he is doing with T1. But absolutely, man, everybody is thinking that about someone like Tarzan. When you see that go through, the idea of having that much of a difference maker, that much of a game changer on your team, I don't blame him.
But even some of the less known heroes of LNG, Icon continues to have the best start to a split that he's ever had. He's playing carries, he's playing Lulu as the support to carry things for them, and then Light and Iwandi, they're getting solo kills or 2v2 kills against FPX, against LWX and Crisp.
And that's going to be that next step for LNG. We've already had this conversation about them as a dark horse contender in the LPL in the spring split, and then talking about them for playoffs, all these type of things. To take that next step, it's going to be talking about more than just Tarzan, right? To be that next level in the LPL, it's having more contributions, more threats. And right now, at the very least, it's looking like LNG will have more of that emerging, specifically with the way Icon is performing right now.
You know what? LNG's week 2 schedule. Let me read off who they got to play for you. JDG, 2-1 series win for them. FPX, 2-1 series win for them. And then they play RNG to close things out. What kind of... Does the LPL hate LNG to give them that schedule?
The LNG better have a week 3 Hawaiian vacation is the way that I look at that schedule.
But they're 4-0 now, and with a win against JDG and FPX, playoffs look pretty good.
Absolutely playoffs for this. And that's why, again, saying taking that next step. Well, it's not just about playoffs. When you have a start like this, you need to be looking at getting yourself in better playoff positioning, the seeding, the matches next up, because it's an endless onslaught of amazing teams in the LPL. So you got to carve out as well as you can during this regular split.
If LNG's looking this good, God bless the LPL playoffs, man. It's going to be tough sledding because you also got teams like Top Esports, who have only, I just read you the insane week 2 for LNG. Top Esports only just played their second series. I don't know who's making these schedules at the LPL, but it's absolutely insane.
It's the LPL.
Absolutely insane. TES went up against Thunder Talk. Whoop-de-doo. You know, I'm not getting too excited about TES taking them down. I will get excited about individual performances, especially when it's a new player. And Ching Qian in the top side for 369, he looked fantastic in this series on both the Lee Sin and the set. That was one of the most alpha set performances I've seen.
It's very rare that you see one of these type of changes, these type of swap ins, and get such an impactful performance, as you said, from the top side. The change. This could be it. This could be another avenue for Top Esports to push themselves into that elite echelon, because they were, pretty much right there on the border. I think a lot of people would say right up there with those squads, with the EDGs, with, World Elite, with FPX, all of them right up in that, jam, the very top of the LPL standings. To make this type of change and the way that it worked out, I'm feeling pretty good about Top Esports in the next week or two.
Knight was smurfing this series. He had some disgusting outplays with the Viego. Carso was looking rock solid. Still a bit of a question mark is Jackie Love. And there was some team fights, even on the Ezreal. Usually it's a treat to see Jackie Love play Ezreal, but I think it's time to call it a slump, Mark. Jackie Love's in a slump.
I think it's okay to call it that as well. I think the problem is someone, bumped into the amplifier for the Jackie Love guitar meter, and all of a sudden it's all the way cranked up to like 12 and 13, and we got to go, whoa, let's slow it down, let's roll back to 9 or 10, keep it in that zone.
We need some
right?
chill
Please.
jams. We need some chill jams, Jackie Love.
Yeah, somebody get Jackie Love a lo-fi playlist, because we need to rein it back in.
Now, again, the rest of the squad looked pretty good. Top Esports, you still fully expect to be a top 4 team at the very least when the season starts playing out. It's Thunder Talk, who are 0-3. You want to talk playoff aspirations? They're not there. They're not there for Thunder Talk.
It's crumbled away.
It's crumbled away before the split even started. But really, LNG is a surprise so far of summer, and they started 4-1 last split, but it was a way easier schedule that they had than beating JDG and FPX.
Extremely different than getting them, and again, gonna be holding on to see how they fare against the MSI champions RNG, because that is gonna be the biggest showdown match in week 2, week 3 of the LPL.
Yeah, that's the Sunday we get LNG versus RNG. RNG finally, after LNG's played 4 games, will make their debut against OMG on the Friday. So we'll see how the MSI champs are looking with Gwen and Viego on the Rift, and when Xiaohu's going to play them, because he's going to at some point. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. As always, thanks for hanging out with us, and we will catch you guys and gals on the Flippity Flip.